All right, everyone, we are back. Make sure you check in. There's still a few people missing. All right, we're still waiting. All right, make sure your cameras are on, everybody. All right. Hey, Rob, join us. Okay, great. Rob, make sure you check in. Don't forget you're checking in per chapter, so any chapters missed, you have to make up. Okay. Let's see what we got. Hey, Rob, you still did not check in. Okay. Let me give it a try. Rob, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh, you can? Okay, great. Just want to make sure. I need you to check in. Andrea M says, yesterday I spent the night watching property on eBay. Just because I mentioned it. So I'll just let you know, I started when purchasing on eBay when it was new. It was like that first year. Right? I don't know how good it is right now, but I never purchased again. I have no idea. It's been 15 years. 15 years. All right, so we're moving forward. Rob, reach out to me later. Apparently you're having difficulty with checking in, but reach out to me later, okay? All right, so we're going to talk about risk management. Here, this is more towards the broker's course. Obviously, there's some stuff here that you need to be aware as a salesperson because you are conducting business. But even if you're not conducting business, risk management should exist in your life at all times, right? Right? You're there with the crutches and everything. So we know about risk management. We know about potential car accidents. We know about potential health issues, right? There's risk management. You need to avoid certain things. Or we need to, hey, there's things I can't control, so I better be ready for it, right? So that's where we're going to go over that. So there's risk management strategies. We have avoidance, reduction, transference, and retention. Now, when we talk about avoiding risk, is eliminating the risk altogether. Okay. Reduction of risks is mitigation or sharing the risk. Hey, it's going to be the two of us going at this venture, so we split the liability and also the profits, right? Transference. That's when we outsource or we insure. So we say, hey, I'm not the one doing it. The plumber is. It's transferring that risk to somebody else. That's why we should never be the expert of something that we're not licensed in, right? And as far as insuring, it's another way of transferring risk. You're telling the insurance company, if I get into an accident, whether it's my mistake or somebody else's, or if I make a mistake in the contract, you, the insurance company, will compensate whoever suffers, right? So your client will compensate them. So the money comes out of the insurance company as a whole versus from you. So we pay monthly, right, to the insurance company, so that if worse comes to worse, something happens, you don't have to ditch out $10, $20, $30, $100,000 right away. Insurance will take care of that, right? And then there's retention. Retention is acceptance and budgeting. Like, hey, I know this is going to happen. It's bound to happen. So let me put some money aside ready for it, right? This happens in all fields, even property management, as we'll talk in the next chapter. Not all of these strategies are always possible or available, but a real estate firm or licensee who fails to make a conscious effort to employ one or more of them increases the likelihood of loss from many potential risks that are always present in the real estate business. Avoidance includes refraining from an activity that carries risk. For instance, right, there's other examples here, but for instance, anybody like skydiving? Skydiving? Wei Ping is like, nope, no. I like my feet on the ground. Right? But a few people raise their hands. You like skydiving? No? Susanna? No. All right. Huh? Skydiving? Jumping off a plane?
Jumping
off a plane. Like,
oh.
No. So so skydiving, Tracy says yes. Want to go, never been. Andrea says I can do it. Can't do it, but I like to travel. All right, so, but for those of you that like skydiving, as an example, right? You know there's a high risk with skydiving, right? There's a really high risk because you're jumping off a plane thousands of feet in the air. There's a high risk. So avoidance is, hey, I might pull, I might not pull. I might be awake and sober at the time, but I might also pass out from the pressure. So in order to prevent anything wrong happening, I'm going to avoid doing it. So some people, maybe that's what it is. You guys don't like skydiving because you never tried it, because you're afraid of the risk. Maybe that's what it is. So you avoid it altogether, right? So you don't take that activity in order to avoid it. As far as reduction, on the next page, is taking steps to reduce the probability of severity of a potential loss. So let's go back to the skydiving. Would you jump off a plane without the parachute? No, you want to have that security or some type of security that reduces the risk. Again, you just got to remember to pull once you reach the altitude. Okay, once you reach that level, you pull, right? That thing opens, and you slowly reach the ground, and you meet Weeping right there waiting for you. She will not jump. Right? So that's reduction. Transference. Okay. The most common transfers we have in the real estate business is called errors and omission insurance. Transference. So we're transferring, like I said, the liability or the risk to somebody else. Is it possible that we make mistakes when preparing a contract, when showing a house, right? Is it possible that we forget to say something, right? We omit something that we're not aware, maybe, right? But we could still be held liable. So, the errors and omission insurance, as the name already says, is if you make a mistake, error, or if you omit something, maybe you forgot, or hey, if you did it on purpose, I'm going to show you, it's not covered. But that's what it is. To be human is to err, it's to make mistakes, right? So we insure ourselves for that. That's transfers. If you intentionally do this, by the way, if you intentionally make that mistake, or if you intentionally omit something, it's called fraud and it will not be covered. Sebastian wrote, but no, how about this? It either works out or it doesn't, and in a few minutes it suddenly won't be a problem anymore. You're talking about the parachute? Nice way of thinking. Jump off a plane, it might work, might not work, but in a matter of seconds it won't be a problem anymore. All right. I think that's why a lot of people here do not jump, because of that matter of seconds. All right. And then the last one is retention. So retention means entering into an activity in spite of the known risks and taking full responsibility for the consequences. This is, in effect, self-insurance. The only strategy left when risk cannot be reduced or transferred, or one has decided not to avoid it because of desirability of the potential benefits. So again, like Sebastian said, you know, I'm still going to jump. I might land. Well, I'll definitely land. The question is how. So, and you're ready for it. So you took responsibility for what you're about to do. You knew about it. It's going to happen. And I take responsibility for it, and I'm prepared for it, right? So Sebastian, in that scenario, make sure you have insurance. Make sure your family's taken care of. And I'm saying this because my cousin is a professional skydiver. He does it all the time. He's actually has an instructor license now. Crazy, I know. And he just asked me a couple of days ago. He says, hey, so now that I have a baby, right? He's going to be 1 year old, his baby boy. Now that I have a baby, I think I need to get life insurance. Now, right? Now that you got a baby. And I said, well, you have a risky activity. Your life insurance is going to be very expensive. But I can do it. I get paid by the insurance company anyway. So it's not like I'm going to take money away from you. But I will insure you for the sake of your son. just in case. And unfortunately, these are things we need to be ready for. If he cannot get insured, he must have money set aside just in case. And I'm saying this because he did unfortunately crash once. Last year, actually 2 years ago, the wind came from underneath as he was almost on the ground, lifted him up, and dropped him like a, yeah. It was bad. 2 months later, he's back at it. So he accepted the risk, retention. Okay. All right. No. No, not him. He was right back at it. Okay, it's like falling from a bike, right? Bicycle, fall, almost the same. You get right back. Isn't that what they say? If you fall from a bicycle, get right back on it, right? Risk management procedures. So one of the ways to reduce your risk or manage your risk is by education. That's what you guys are doing here now, for example, right? In every 2 years, or with specialized courses later on. So if you're going to property management, don't you think you should take a course on property management? Right? That will reduce the risk or liability. Disclosure. To me, this is the one. Disclose, 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 disclose. As much as you can, disclose. Right? And that will always reduce your liability. Except when you intentionally say, hey, I'm going to kill you. What she said to Peter? Right? When you do that, you already put yourself liable for the situation. Documentation and record keeping. This is another one that's very important, and insurance we already covered. So, education is the first line of defense against risk. If you don't know what you're doing, right, you should. That's the first line of defense. Always, always take courses. And again, I'm going to go really fast at this because this chapter, if this was the broker's course, I would go more in depth. Being the salesperson course, a lot of these questions are not asked. So I'm just giving you as a heads up of what you should do with your profession and your life. This one is key. Disclosure. By ensuring that all parties have the information they are entitled to, proper disclosure reduces the risk that the clients and customers will accuse a licensee of misleading or inducing them to make a decision with incomplete information. Further, laws in every state require disclosures of one kind or another. Disclosure may be in writing or verbally and may or may not require written acknowledgments from the receiving party. Required disclosures usually include agency relationships. Guys, as a quick review, what types of agency relationships can we enter into? It's a long time ago, I know, chapter 11. What type of agency relationships can we enter into? Sebastian, you were talking about listings. I'm talking about agency. Say it louder. Dual? What? Kinda? Kinda? Marlon wrote dual as well. Unilateral, bilateral? Nope. Special agency? Nope. Tracy wrote dual as well. LLC? Sebastian's like, this is the chapter I missed. Great excuse.
Is it exclusive?
Yep. Nope, that's listings. What is agency? Anybody? Great. So, what type of relationships can we get involved in? If it's a relationship between the client and the broker, then what's happening here? The broker is doing what? Representing the client, right? So again, what type of relationships can we get involved in? Ooh, you guys are so off. Review time. You guys are so off. Direct relationship. All right. No. Sanam, principals and clients. Yes, but what are the relationships? Mm-hmm. Sebastian, don't go search. You either know it or you don't. He's going to his cue cards. I'll give you a hint. So both Marlon and Lydiane mentioned dual, and Tracy as well. Disclosed, dual, agent. That's one of the relationships where you represent both parties. What are the other relationships? Don't give me that look. Sub-agency, single. Well, if there's a dual, there's a single. Got it. Dual agency with the same agent. Sorry, I'm having fun. Third party customer. You guys are going, like, you're saying everything that's related to it except what it actually is. Agency relationship. So you guys are right in every single sense except for the thing that I'm actually asking. So seller's agent, buyer's agent, disclosed dual agent, or transaction broker, where you don't represent either one. Those are the agency relationships. That's it. Every time, Maria, every time you hear about agency relationships, it's how you represent the client. How you represent the client. Seller's agent if I represent the seller. Buyer's agent if I represent the buyer. Disclosed dual agent if I represent both. Right? Or transaction broker if I don't represent neither. Okay, if I'm not representing, I'm just facilitating the transaction. It's a transaction broker. You guys remember this? Raise your hand if you remember this. Okay. All right, I got a whatever. Okay. Andre says, now I do. All right, so agency relationships. It's how you represent the party or not. Tracy, yes, seller's agent or buyer's agent. Disclosed dual agent or transaction broker where you don't represent either one of them. So most states require you to disclose that. Require you to tell the seller what they can expect from you or tell the buyer what they can expect from you. Okay, that is key. Okay, another type of disclosure that's required is property condition. Okay, property condition. Another disclosure is your duties and obligations. As I was saying right now from the agency relationships, what are your duties and obligations to that client or customer? Like I said, you guys were on point with everything if I was asking questions surrounding agency. Like, so Marlon wrote customer, third party. Somebody wrote, Sanam wrote principals and clients. Yes. If you represent the seller, they're the principal, and then the other party you don't represent, they're customers. Right? Agency relationship is, are you the seller's agent? Are you the buyer's agent? Are you representing both of them? Are you not representing either one of them? Right? Make sure your cameras are on. If they're not on, it does not count towards your hours. Okay? If your cameras are not on, it does not count towards your hours. This is a public announcement at 7:20 p.m. Gotta get another, like a button here just to announce stuff. All right. Personal interest in the transaction. Why do we need to disclose personal interest in the transaction? Because there might be a conflict of interest. So if I represent, let's say my dad selling or buying his house, I have a special interest in the transaction. Let's say you show up and say, Bruno, I want to buy a house, right? Well, I have to disclose to you that I could represent you. Right now, I represent the seller, which happens to be my father, as an example, right? So I have a personal interest. So it's up to you if you want me to represent you or not, knowing this now. So I have to disclose. If it's the church that you go to, that you're trying to sell or buy, whatever, again, there's an interest. You have to disclose. And the same with referrals. Okay. As far as documentation record keeping, this is also key. Documentation record keeping. To me, besides the standard policy and procedure manuals, standard forms, and so on, for you to prevent issues, communication records, emails, phone calls, text messages, do not delete anything, because that's going to be your defense. If you talk with somebody over the phone, please, always, this should be your rule of thumb, always, after speaking with somebody on the phone, text them or email them. Per our phone conversation. This is what we agreed to. Right? And believe me, I know a lot of people that 2 seconds later forget everything we agreed to. Okay? All right. Contracts, obviously. Proper accounting, obviously, and other important documents. All right. So I'm going to skip all this. This is for broker side, not for you. And we're going to go to page 359 at the bottom. All right. 359 at the bottom says general liability. So if we talk about insurance, there's different types of insurance. There's general liability, which provides coverage for risks incurred by a property owner when the public or licensee enters the owned property. Okay? So the property that you're about to go into should have their own insurance, right? The insurer pays the covered claim and legal fees, costs, and expenses. Costs and expenses, including medical expenses resulting from the owner's negligence or other causes. This type of insurance does not cover professional liability. And that's where errors and omissions, which is the one we get, that's where it comes in. Now, errors and omissions is two general types. Unprofessional conduct, so you did something that you're not supposed to do, or breach of contract. You failed to perform. So you did something you're not supposed to do, or you did not complete what you said you were supposed to do. That's what errors and omissions will cover. What it does not cover, for those of you that intend to commit fraud, right? Errors and omission does not cover anything that's a violation of the law, like killing your broker. Don't do it. Okay? Any fraudulent... Oh, she's never going to hear the end of that one. Right? Look at that. She's like, yeah. Don't worry, I'll mess with you too. Don't worry. I mess with everybody. Fraudulent, dishonest, and criminal or malicious acts. Mishandling of escrow monies, earnest money deposits or secure deposits. Antitrust violations. Sexual harassment. Fair housing, we'll talk about this later. Agent-owned properties. Environmental violations. Failure to detect or disclose environmental conditions, including mold. Acts committed prior to licensure or after termination of active status. And activities as an appraiser if licensing other than real estate license is required. So, as you guys can tell, just like with every insurance and every warranty, there's more do not cover than what they cover. Right? I don't know if you ever looked at the warranty of your car, right? Or the warranty of your electronic devices, right? The part they cover is a small section like this. What they do not cover is like 10 pages, right? Here's the same thing. Yes. Agent-owned properties. So let's say you're selling your own property. Your professional liability does not cover the damage to the house. So if it's your property that you're selling and there's something that's wrong with it, right? You should have known better when disclosing. So it does not cover. For instance, if I go knock on your door and I say, hey, would you like to sell your house? You say yes, right? Sold. When do you want to list your house? She just nodded her hair like,
How'd
I'm so sorry. I had to mess with you.
you got lost?
How do you think I get my listings? I give examples to random people, and they're just say yes. It's a joke. So let's say you said yes. Now I'm going to ask you, what are the issues with the house? Right? Now I have defense against issues that you don't tell me. Right? But if I'm listing my own house, can I say that I did not know about my own house? You see what I'm saying? So it does not cover stuff that you should have known because you are the owner of the house. When it's somebody else, I can always point the fingers. I can always say, no, she's the one telling me, or he's the one telling me. Wasn't me, right? I can go shaggy all day. Wasn't me, right? But when it's your own property, Andre's laughing. But when it's your own property, you cannot do that. You can try, right? You can't do that. All right. So, in short, errors and omissions covers mistakes, not crimes. Good? Not crimes, okay? So, fire and hazard, that's your homeowner's insurance. Flood insurance, if you're in an area that's prone to flood, right? There's other insurance like casualty. And by the way, we're talking about insurance in general. We're not just talking about insurance for homes. There's casualty insurance, there's workers' comp, contents and personal property, consequential loss, use and occupancy, and surety bonds. So different types of insurance for different purposes. Okay. All right. Again, this chapter, we're just going briefly over it. A lot of stuff here is not needed or covered. In the second section of this particular chapter right here, we are going to touch a few things that we're going to go in detail in another chapter as well. Agency, we already talked about. Property disclosures, we talked about. Listings and selling, contracting. This is always key. Fair housing. In fact, most states implemented this year that CE credits must include 1 hour at least of fair housing. That's how crazy things have been. Like, we've been working backwards. Instead of moving forward, now we're going to talk about equality all over again. Talking about how everybody's entitled to buy a house or sell a house or rent a house or even apply for credit. Right? So it's like over the years, laws have been implemented, right? And we talked about this before, right? 1968 Civil Rights Act. We talked about 1866, I'm sorry. Then fair housing in 1968, and how gender was a protected class, how families with children are protected now, and so on. And then we get to these past 10, 15 years maybe, and it's like everything got destroyed. And here's discrimination all over again. Like, before we could hide it, kind of, because the internet was not that, people are now with smartphones filming everything. Now you can't hide. So if you intend to discriminate, guys, right, make sure there's no cameras around. That's all I got to say. Okay? The joke, do not discriminate. Those of you smiling, like you know what you do now. No cameras. Or you can hire Lady Ann and she'll take care of the person that's filming. All right. Let's go over this. Agency. The risk of agency will occur in one of two areas. The requirement to inform and disclose, and the requirement to carry out an agency duty. Okay. Disclose what? Right here. Disclose how you are acting. And we already covered that in the previous section, right? We talked about agency relationships, right? Are you a facilitator? Are you an agent, sub-agent, designated agent, single agent, dual agent, non-agent, or in some capacity? People need to know, how are you representing them or not, and what can they expect? Okay? So you need to disclose, depending on the state that you're in, You need to disclose the status verbally to other licensees on initial contact, verbally to the buyer and seller providing real estate services before providing real estate services. Before, right there. Confirm the disclosure in writing before, again, signing a listing agreement or presenting a purchase offer or preparing a purchase offer, okay? And get a signed receipt indicating that they understood. How do we indicate they understood? We give written disclosure and they sign off on it. The second part of it was carrying out your duties, right? You guys remember COLD? Care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure, right? So you need to care for your client, obey the lawful instructions, hold proper accounting, be loyal to your client, so keep things confidential. And we go back to disclosing issues that could affect the property. So if you have personal interest in a transaction, disclose. Personal benefit that the agent will receive or derive from a referral service, disclose. Required property and market information. Information about customers a client is entitled to have. So disclose. You guys remember this right here. To all parties, you must be honest, fair, and hold reasonable care and skill in disclosures. To all parties means even to customers. But if it's a client, right? If it's a client, then you need to develop skills, important skills in your profession. You need to improve. You cannot go 30 years in the business doing the same thing you did on day one, right? Which is, what is a house? Right? A lot of you don't even know the different architectural styles. For you to tell your client, oh, this is a Cape Cod, or it's a ranch, or it's a colonial, right? So you need to develop that over the years, right? You're not required to know it all from the start, right? But you are required to care enough, for instance, that you'll bring somebody with you that has the experience. You got it? So if you don't know, be the first one to say, I do not know. That's a great question. I'll get that information. I'll get right back to you, right? Or better yet, tag along with somebody with experience every step of the way. Andrea said urban or rustic. So yeah, there's different variables to property, architectural styles and stuff. Diligence. So do your due diligence. Be loyal. Obedience, confidentiality, accounting, full disclosure, and so on. This, guys, right here is from chapter 11, agency. So we had a whole chapter on this. It was just a quick reminder of your duties and obligations. So we're going to skip that. And we're going to go to page 363 at the bottom. If you have not done the agency chapter, 20% of the exam is based on agency. If you have not done the agency chapter, or even if you did, watch the replays over and over and over again. It's that important. Okay? In fact, I have somebody that reached out to me. She was in the previous session, so on chapter 23. She reached out to me, and when I was looking during the break, I was looking at where she failed, right? Out of 20 questions, which, by the way, it's not just 20 questions, there's more. There's like 30-something questions. But out of 22 questions, she had 12 correct. Okay? Out of 20 questions, she had 12 correct. That's a lot, right? You cannot miss that much on agency. Right? But it's not specifically agency because there's another section for agency, but they go together. In the other section of agency, out of 10, she had 5. Okay? So, and under the practice of real estate, she was okay, but just between these two, agency and practice real estate with licensing requirements, as we've been going over. Just in these, we're talking about 32 questions out of 110 in the New Jersey State exam. 32, right? And she was at 50% in these. So very, very important you guys focus on agency, and then obviously contracts and principles. I'm not even talking about finance. I'm looking at it right now. I'm not even talking about financing or anything else. Just these alone cover the majority of the exam. Okay, and they integrate as you. How many times have we repeated agency or obligations? How many times and how many chapters have we been going over the same thing over and over, right? So that's how important it is. Once you have the concept of it, right, then everything else is easy to understand. Everything else that it goes with. Property condition. Okay. Property condition. Most states require the seller of a residential property to deliver a written disclosure or disclaimer about the property condition, including any material defects that the owner knows about. So the owner must tell you all the issues that the property has. Okay, the owner must tell you all the issues the property has that he's aware of. Look, I've lived in houses all my life. I don't know about you guys, right? But the houses that I lived in, I know the condition of the house from getting into the house and out of the house, right? But we cannot see what's behind the wall. So there's some stuff that we do not know, right? Some of you have lived in houses for Sebastian, 19? 19 years, okay. And some of you might live in houses for 50 or 60, 100, 200 years. Doesn't matter how old you are, your experience is going to be the same. I'm pretty sure none of you have infrared or X-ray vision. So I can only talk about what I know. What's been damaged that I fixed, damage that I did not fix, right? That I've seen and I'm aware of, right? Or the condition and usage of the property. So the seller is required in some states to include a form. It's called a seller's property condition disclosure form. Okay? Agents, right? Realtors. Are we the ones that are going to know the condition of the house that somebody else lived in? Not us? No. So our job is to get that information. Okay? So licensees should always obtain the party signatures acknowledging the receipt of these disclosures. Okay? Now, next page. Depending on the state, the licensee may have no further duty to disclose property condition after properly informing the parties of their rights or obligations. However, the licensee may still be subject to legal action for deliberately distorting the facts. If you did it intentionally, I already told you that errors in omission insurance does not cover. If you did it intentionally, right? If you cheated any party, that's fraud. Or if you concealed or failed to disclose adverse facts which a licensee knew about or should have known about, this is now either intentional or unintentional misrepresentation. See, sometimes these things we do not know. Okay? But our profession requires us to, for instance, look around the property. There's a lot of agents that when they walk into the property, their primary goal is getting a listing or a purchase, right? That's their primary goal. That's what they're focused on. So much that they forget to look up for signs of, for instance, moisture, like mold, or potential leaks or other structural damages, right? When I always do the same in every house that I go to with my clients, I look at everything. I take my sweet time as they're looking at the house. I'm looking at the house, right? In fact, funniest thing, when I had my surgery, right? I had the brace on and everything, and I still went to see properties. People must have found it so weird, because this is me. I think I've mentioned it before. This is me putting my hand over here so I can look up. Like putting my hand helped in any way, shape, or form for me to look up. It doesn't. All I had to do is move back. But anyway, I'll put the hand to look up, right? And here's the realtor that has the open house, for instance, looking at me weird. I'm like, oh no, I'm just checking to see if there's any damages. But I think they were thinking about my hand. Why is the hand here? Anyway, but it's key, guys. I do weird stuff. I'm sorry. But I think that's one of the things that makes people trust me and keep on referring business, because I'm usually more detailed than other agents, right? And your success is going to be determined by that. Are you concealing stuff? Are you cheating your clients just to get the deal completed, right? Or are you just not paying attention? You should have known, right? So liability gets back to you based on this. The more effective you are with your inspection, visual inspection of the property, right? And then, of course, asking questions. The more effective you are, that the better protector you're going to be. Yes.
Eu tenho que perguntar em português porque eu não sei.
Okay.
Nós lá era muito. Eu sempre fazia, eu faço isso, eu olho para todo lado, eu vejo as telas que há tudo. Mas muito usual nós perguntar, quando eu não sabia, depois eu estudei isso, o chão serve. Os clientes fazem, não querem, não fazem.
Okay.
Quais os acabamentos que a casa tem? Eu, Susana, gosto, antes de ir para a casa, seja a casa, se sou eu a angariar a casa, eu sei tudo, eu sei que vou perguntar. Mas quando eram os meus colegas, elas meu Deus, para ser um produto, o que é este chão? Eu não sei, porque eu olho para o chão.
Yeah. So when you're getting a listing, a lot of the questions should be that. I mean, we should be able to differentiate. I'm going to tell you what the question was in a second. We should be able to differentiate with experience the type of material that's being used in a property. So what Susanna was asking is, when you go through a property, and again, this is whether you're representing a buyer or representing a seller, when you go through a property, do we ask or should we know what type of flooring does he have, right? What type of structure does it have, right? And the countertops, all that stuff. Yeah. It's, you should know, because some clients do ask, right? Some people don't want Formica countertops. They want the granite countertops. They want the good stuff, right? Obviously for $10, but they want it, so they will ask you, hey, what do you think this is, right? Some stuff is easy to identify, like Formica granite. You can see the difference, right? The what?
Normally, ask me every time, real wood or is
correct?
Forming?
Yeah, so you have to know the kitchen cabinets, what type of material is used there. The floor, is it the hardwood floor, or is the laminate floor, or that plastic rollout cheap floor that they sometimes they put? So you have to ask these questions, right? But this is why, guys, this is why I mentioned before that we ask that from the seller. If we're doing a listing, we ask from the seller to fill out the seller's property condition disclosure form. Almost all the questions are asked there, and they have to respond to the best of their ability. But believe it or not, this is why we're the ones with experience, the ones with a license. Believe it or not, a lot of sellers don't even know what they have. So it's our job, again, develop the skills to be able to identify even the type of material that's being used. Okay? Is that going to change perspective in terms of value? Hell yeah. Right? Because the house could be, let's say, and I've seen this. I've seen a house, for instance, and another one listed very close by. The house was listed for, as an example, $500,000, right? They had the granite countertops. They had the nice hardwood floors, brand new tile all over the bathrooms and stuff, right? Really nice. And then we have another house that this investor was flipping. Sadly, I know the investor. But this investor was flipping, and he used the cheapest material possible. It looked really nice. To somebody that does not know the difference, they would pay the same $500,000 at the time, right? But once you're looking at it, like, oh, this is not hardwood floor, right? As an example. So, what material is being used here? People sometimes don't answer. They don't know how to answer, so on. That's why the seller is the one that knows. They have to disclose, right? And not having the same material as another house obviously reduces the value or increases the value of another house. So it's our job to be aware of these things. Yes. Okay. Tracy's question is a great question. Can one still ask these questions if a house is listed as is? Guys, I think I mentioned the as is before in a different chapter, but Tracy, you can ask questions every step of the way. As is, what does this mean? As is simply means you are fully aware of the damages and you still choose to move forward the way it is. Okay? So Tracy, yes, you asking questions. What type of floor is it? Oh, it's laminate, but if you wanted, or it's whatever, carpeting underneath, you have hardwood floors, we just put it right on top, whatever. Ask the questions. If the buyer wants the carpeted floor, right, they're buying subject to the current condition, and that's what as is means, right? Oh, yeah, there's a leak in the roof. You cannot see it, but there's a leak, right? We're selling as is. If the buyer is aware of that potential leak in the roof and still chooses to move forward, then he or she is buying as is, aware of the conditions. It's not like happened to, believe me, I can tell you a bunch of stories. Happened to an agent. It was our first deal. This is years ago. Until the day of closing, everything was perfect. The listing agent and the seller knew exactly when to show the house, right? They show the house on sunny days. The buyer closes, gets the key, goes to the house, starts moving stuff in. Next day, they're about to finish the move, but it was a rainy day. Now, I don't know if you ever watched those cartoons. I've also mentioned this before in a different class. If you watch those cartoons where it's like the rain pouring, right, thundering right over that one cartoon, right? This is how their house looked. Inside the house, it looked like that's where it rained. There's not barely any rain outside, but inside the house, it was pouring. Okay, like Niagara Falls pouring. Yeah. Okay. Well, but he wasn't. See, this is the thing. So the buyer could not kind of go after the agent that represented the buyer, but could sue the seller's agent and the seller for not disclosing the stuff. My brother bought a house, and the problem is that my brother waived a type of inspection, which is the sewer line inspection, because it's another $200-300 on top of the regular inspection. So, true stories. He gets the key to the house, moves stuff into the house. He's now enjoying his new house, and first day that he's going to shower, what happens? Everything backs right into the house. His shower was not a normal type of water. Nope. Okay, it was really, really bad. So what can he do? He can sue the seller. He can sue the listing agent. But he can also sue the agent that represented him and recommended to not have that inspection done. Okay? Because it was the agent that recommended that. And yes, my brother, I was not the agent, just so you guys know. Friends and family, I tell you. But anyway, the point is, you could get sued if you don't mention these things. Okay? Disclosure, 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 disclosure. I don't know how many times I can say this, but disclosure. Andrea M., can you prove it? Well, let me ask you something. If you buy a house, right, no problems whatsoever, and the day you move in, there's sewer backup, like, I'm going to go Donald Trump on you, the likes of which nobody has ever seen. Right, because that's what the favorite sentence he has, the likes of which nobody's ever seen. Right? Do you think that happened overnight? The damage to that sewer line happened overnight? No, it's been happening. Okay? The problem is not proving it. The problem is he waived that inspection. So his defense, or offense in this case actually, just went from a lot to barely anything. So to pursue was very difficult. $30,000 later, was asked to dig and replace the sewer line and connect to the city, a brand new sewer line and everything, and redo the whole basement. Anyway, good.
The question is, buyer,
Mm-hmm.
with the seller, so, and the buyer, is the seller on, or is it?
No, it's what I was saying before. You have to be fully aware of the damages when you're buying something as is. As is doesn't mean, hey, I'm gonna, like, you guys kind of see, okay? So, okay, I have a mouse right here, right? And I'm going to damage the mouse. You guys are not aware of this, and I'm just telling you, hey, I have a mouse for sale. Right? I cannot hide the conditions of the mouse. You got it? I cannot hide it. If it's damaged and you still choose to buy, that's on you, as is. But you're fully aware of the damages that it has. I cannot be like, hey, it's as is. Take it or leave it. I cannot do that. Inspectors. Mm-hmm. But that's exactly what I was trying to say with the mouse. I have to tell you what the issues are. I have to tell you I cannot hide the fact that it's damaged. Okay? I cannot do that. I have to tell you the condition. If you choose to move forward with a broken mouse or a broken car or a broken whatever, then you're buying as is, broken. You're conscious of what you have to do. And I'm telling you this, for instance, if a house is about to collapse and I sell it to you as is, and you just purchased the house for $200,000 thinking, oh, the only issue it has is a tile here, and maybe I need to fix the lights or something, replace it here and there, just paint it a little bit, and it's good to go. And then next day the house collapses. Is that fair? I'm listening.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have the, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the issue with as is and the inspections, for instance, a lot of people say as is, waive inspections. This is the issue. They still have to disclose. If there's an inspection, you find something, right? You're not obligated on the contract or anything to move forward, because you were not aware of the damage. That's why we put subject to inspection, right? But also, the moment the seller said as is, and you find something in the inspection, The seller is not obligated to fix it. Different than from a regular contract. In the regular contract, you see damages, you're going to tell the seller, hey, it's about to collapse. So are we negotiating this or what? Right? In an as is, no, I told you it was about to collapse. I'm telling you there's issues. Right? You want to buy it or not? Okay? But you have to be fully aware. You cannot, nothing can be hidden from you. If it's hidden and you find out later, you can back out of the contract, or you can still sue the seller because of non-disclosure of something they knew. Okay? So know about. Tracy, that's exactly what happened to me. A few months after I moved into my home, everything started falling apart. The seller had covered everything with paint. My agent did not ask any questions. Well, in our defense, right? If it's covered in paint, unless it's fresh paint, how are we going to be able to tell? Yes, you should ask questions, but if the seller does not disclose the issues as we just went over, right? Then who do you have to sue? The seller. Okay? Now, Tracy, if you're fully aware that your agent did not put an effort to find out more, can you sue the agent? Yeah. Absolutely, guys. You can get sued. Again, this is why we're going over this. Property condition is key. Ask a lot of questions. Disclose the stuff you know about. Okay? Getting a check is great, but screwing up somebody's life might end up screwing up yours. Right? Just because of a check, not worth it. All right, I'm telling you, it's not worth it at all. Real quick, right here, lead-based paint and other disclosures. You guys already know this. If the property was built before 1978, you have to provide disclosure for lead-based paint. The banks might require other stuff like pest control, like they have to inspect for termites, as an example, or other types of pests that might be there. Soil tests, depending if it's a commercial property or industrial property, soil test has to be included, and so on. Okay. CMAs and comps, we covered that in chapter 16 in detail, right? So we're going to skip. Contracting process. We covered that in contracts. On page 367, we already covered this again, but it's just to repeat, unauthorized practice of law. We are entitled to, we covered this in contracts, we are entitled to prepare contracts for the sale or lease of residential properties. Most states have something, a law that's similar to this, right? What you're not allowed to do is interpret the contract. You're allowed to fill in the blanks and then explain to your client that they're doing this at their own risk. That's why we usually advise that you seek an attorney to represent you. We're filling in the blanks. That's all we're doing. We're opening doors, right? And wait, I cannot say it like that because then a lot of people are going to say, well, then what am I paying you for? But in the simplest terms, we're opening doors and filling in the blanks. Okay, that's the simplest terms of our profession. That's it. The other thing we do, that's what gives us more value as well, besides having the experience to see the type of material, is we coordinate the whole transaction. We're, again, the ones that will orchestrate, right, the whole thing. Bring the title company, bring the attorneys, bring the mortgage people, everything, and make sure it concludes, right? So that's what we get paid big bucks for, okay? But we cannot give any type of advice when it comes to the wording or verbiage on a contract. As far as fair housing, we're going to go more in detail when we get to the state chapter, and we already covered this in the previous chapter as far as fair housing. But you know that we have to be careful with our advertisement. We cannot do anything that's specific or exclusionary, like if we're trying to exclude certain groups of people from seeing a house, right, from the advertisement. You cannot do that. You cannot answer any questions in any way that would be considered steering, if you guys remember steering, right? Channeling people either to or away from a particular area, right? During the listings, okay, you have to be very clear to the client that you should make it clear that the agent will reject the use of terms indicating race, religion, creed, color, national origin, sex, handicap, age, familial status, and so on. You will terminate the listing if the seller uses any of these, right, in consideration of the offer, and inform the broker that the seller makes any attempt to discriminate illegally. So, guys, this is key. We covered it in fair housing. We're covering now, so we covered the professional practices, chapter 13. We are covering again now, and then in the state portion as well. If a seller says that he or she intends to discriminate, we terminate the listing right away. And we tell our broker, this is what they're doing. This is the reason why I terminated. Why? To protect potential clients or customers, and of course yourselves, from the liability. Right? Cover this already. Regulation. All right, go to at the bottom of page 370. Again, just reiterating a couple of things. Hey guys, those of you that have your cameras on, if this is your first time taking this class, you have to have your cameras off, I'm sorry. You have to have your cameras on at all time, otherwise it does not count towards your hours. If you did not check in yet, it does not count towards your hours. So, just giving you a heads up, you might have to repeat the whole class. And hopefully with the delays, we'll get there. All right. Unintentional misrepresentation, I already covered before. Unintentional is you didn't do it on purpose. Right? Isn't that what intentional? I did it on purpose. Unintentional, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. It's just like, hey, I did not know, right? I was not aware, or I was told something different. Because sometimes it's just we didn't do our job in researching, right? But sometimes it could also be honest misrepresentation, which is somebody told you, like the seller told you, that their roof was 5 years old, when in fact it's already like 30 years old, it's expiring. Right? So if you're not aware of something because somebody else told you, it's unintentional. Okay? Those found guilty generally have to pay fines and may be disciplined by the state, real estate regulators, and professional organizations. So if you do something unintentionally, you still might be somewhat liable. At least like with a slap in the wrist, like, hey, don't do it again. Right? At least that, or pay attention. Because our license is something serious. Right? You have to understand. Just like and I'll go my example as the surgery, right? Just like a surgeon, it's something that could ruin somebody's lives if you're not doing it properly. Real estate, when somebody buys a house, for a lot of people, that's their biggest investment of their lifetime. And here you are, not caring about that person, you just care about your check, that moment, right? So you will get paid, you'll have to pay fines, maybe even probation, right? Or a step further, suspension. Okay? All right. How can unintentional misrepresentation happen? This is so common. Making or reporting measurements. Has anybody ever searched for a house before? Okay. And if it shows the square footage of the house, and you went to that house, do they always match what you see online on the listing and what you see inside the house? Does it always match? No. Why? Because, guys, we are lazy. Did everybody understand that word? Lazy? Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of agents, what they do is they expect the seller to tell them how many square feet they find in the house, right? Or public records. Okay. What if the seller made an addition to the house? What if the seller changed the structure of the house? It is our job to spend 15 to 20 minutes taking measurements down. Heck, let's say a whole hour, right? Getting to know all the corners of the house. Okay? Doesn't take that long unless it's like a huge mansion, right? 14 rooms and you get lost in one of them. But of course, I'm talking about the bar. But anyway, so right now, it's so easy. Your phone has an app. Depending on the phone you have, comes with an app. iPhones you have to download. Anyway, or purchase. There's digital measuring tapes. Like you just put that thing on the wall, and it measures the distance from here to the other wall. And all you have to do is put on a piece of paper. Okay? Go to the office, write it down. What I do is I draw every room and I make those measurements right there. Right? Then I go to the office, I put on an app on my computer, exactly as I found it, and boom, gives me the total square footage of the house. Might be off by like 10 square feet, maybe 15 square feet. But sometimes the properties say 1,800 square feet. You get there, if you get 1,200, it's already too much. Right? You know why? Sometimes they're including the basement. See, the sellers are not aware that basements do not count as living space in most areas. Not living space. It does not count towards the square footage. All right? Guys, you're the one that's supposed to know this stuff. I think it adds up to what you were asking before, right? Describing the property. Again, what type of property is it? Offering opinions about future growth and development of a neighborhood, or making declarative statements about the presence or absence of hazardous materials. Right here, what I was just saying. The risks of unintentional misrepresentation are reduced if the agent learns to measure and calculate areas accurately, right? Relies on measurements reported by others only with extreme caution and specific disclaimers, like I was told by. That always works. Like, hey, I'm telling you, Shaggy, wasn't me. I was told by. Like, point fingers. Okay? If you refrain from exaggeration, and if you avoid stating opinions, a consumer might take for expertise. All right? Every time you see intentional, if you see intentional misrepresentation, that is fraud. That means you knew about it. Intentional misrepresentation is fraud. You knew about it. That's easy. When you go in the state exam, if the question talks about something that you knew about it, and they'll say it, that you were aware of it or something like that, and you still choose to not disclose, right? Then you knew about it. Therefore, it's called intentional or fraudulent misrepresentation. Intentional or fraudulent misrepresentation. Okay. And we talked about this. Chapter 17. And we are trust funds. I'm going to talk about it in the New Jersey chapter. We are done. Who's ready for a break? Everybody's like hands up. Okay. It's 8:10. We're going to go into a 10-minute break. So 8:20, we will be back to do chapter 24. Stephanie, thanks the Lord. No, thank me, because I'm the one giving you the break. All right, guys, I'll see you in 10 minutes. YouTubers, I'm going to close this session. Mario. Mr. Cholvi, thank you for watching. I'm going to go into a quick break. I'll be back in 10 minutes with a brand new YouTube session. If you are subscribed, it will pop up on your alerts. If not, just, hey, watch out for it. Be right back.